Thank you, Molly. Good morning. It's great to see so many familiar faces and lots of new faces, as well as we're going to hear about some great works that our elected officials are doing. So thank you so much for being here. This morning's event would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. So if I could just, I'd like to acknowledge them. So if you could please hold your applause till the end, that would be great. Our venue sponsor, We Serve. Let's give them, I will tell you, give them a round of applause because their team here has been absolutely phenomenal to work with. We didn't have to lift a finger. Their team just comes in and does it. So we're so appreciative, as well as the work that you do here in the Valley. So thank you. Our bronze sponsors are Salt River Project, Dignity Health Chandler Regional Medical Center, Arizona State University, Air Products and Chemicals, Catalyst Computer Technologies. Our turquoise sponsors are Gila River Hotels and Casinos, Southwest Gas, Southwest Airlines, as well as Intel. And our supporting sponsor is Winiger Properties. Please join me in thanking these companies for the amazing support that they give us. To recognize some of our board of directors that are in the room today. So when I call you, if you can please stand. I have Jane Poston, our board chair from J2 Media, Ward Nichols from Arizona State University, Elin Cruz with Salt River Project, Troy Fontaine with Air Products and Chemicals, Mayor Kevin Harvey, City of Chandler, Andrea Marconi, Brenda Bohr-Craig, Dr. Wendy Nance, Chandler Unified School District, and Sally Putnam with Now Financial, and Jackson Armstrong from Armstrong Hospitalities. Let's give them all a round of applause. You can see the full list of the board in the back of your packets in your book today. So I'd also like to take a moment to recognize our chair for our public policy, whose work is not just a simple event, but Elin Cruz with Salt River Project. Elin, stand up. Elin does the monthly meetings and really keeping us on that legislative track. So I just wanted to thank you for those efforts. As well as Ward Nichols with ASU. Ward is our chair for our Good Government Candidate Endorsement Committee, because we all know this is an election year, and so he makes sure that we are keeping on the keeping everything in line. So thank you, Ward, for all of your efforts there. But we have over 50 elected officials that have pre-registered for this event today, so we can't wait to hear from them. And so if you're an elected official in the room, could you please stand and be recognized? And you're going to get to hear from them in a little bit. So keep those hands clapping, because it's now my pleasure to welcome an award-winning, a small business owner, and a dedicated community volunteer. Please help me welcome our Chandler Chamber current board chair, Jane Poston.
Could you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. It is now my pleasure to introduce our mayor, Kevin Harkey. Mayor Harkey has lived in Chandler since 1985. Give me a minute, I'm going to give you his bio and we'll welcome him up here in a moment. He served on council for 9 years and as mayor for 3 years. He continues to serve as a pastor at Trinity Christian Fellowship in Chandler. Mayor Harkey has a bachelor's degree in biochemistry from the University of Missouri-Columbia, Missouri, and a master's degree in theology from Fuller Theological Seminary. Mayor Harkey is involved extensively in the state and in regional leadership. Please join me now in welcoming Mayor Kevin Harkey.
Well, good morning. What a great turnout. It's good to see so many friendly faces and ready to join us to make this community or state profitable and one that we can see so many thrive. I'm grateful to be here with each and every one of you this morning, and just want to take a minute and look back for so many things that we've seen in our community, and then look forward as well. From billion-dollar company investments in First Arizona Concepts, companies continue to look at our community, Chandler, as a place to thrive and a place to be successful. Just to pick a few, Intel invested $20 billion expanding its semiconductor operations. Luncheon announced an expansion in West Chandler, as well as State 48 expanded their headquarters and retail locations. 99 Ranch Market opened with items from all over the world, amongst so many other large and small additions and expansions in our community. We did a lot of collaboration last year. We're grateful for working with SRP and Intel in the expansion that Intel is going through, as well as undergrounding those power lines. We started a Veterans Commission, and I see that we have several of our commissioners here on that. We initiated our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department. We kicked off our internal and external assessment. We had a successful bond election in Chandler, in which this passed by 40%. And I want to thank all of you that were part of making that successful. It's not a city of Chandler thing. It is all of us in Chandler to make sure that we continue to thrive. We finished our Field of Honor in our Veterans Memorial Park and had a great ribbon cutting, and this will go on for decades as an opportunity to celebrate and honor our veterans in our community. But we've got a lot to look forward to. I am a forward-looking person. My wife is one that always looks backwards and remembers it, but I like to look forward. I'm going to need the help of every one of our state legislators this year, our senators and legislators. We're looking at a transportation opportunity to continue to make sure that our roads, our streets, our transit will continue to meet the demand of industry in our community. So to each of our state reps and senators, I'm asking for your help right now for the renewal of Prop 400 to continue to improve our infrastructure. We will continue to attract and keep great companies in our community, large and small. We will continue to further our DEI initiatives, and we will continue to make Chandler the premier place in the valley, in the state, to live, work, innovate, and play. I want to end with two invitations that I want to invite you to. Our 27th annual Multicultural Festival is back on January 15th in downtown Chandler. Here you can see a variety of ways to join us in celebrating through dance and art and storytelling. Our Asian Village will be set up again. There will be cultural performances, kids activities, unique vendors, and delicious food. I'm going to be there all day. So I hope that if you're there, you'll come up and say hello. I look forward to celebrating our diversity and our excellence in our community through this. And my last invitation, I would like to invite you all as well for on February 17th for our State of the City at the Center of the Arts. You're all invited. So I look forward to working together as we continue to come out of COVID this next year, as we continue to take solutions-oriented approach to provide a high level of service to our constituents. Chandler will continue to be a leader in innovation and best practices across the state. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about you. So thank you for your work in really keeping Chandler on the map and making us shine.
Let's give Mayor Harvey a round of applause there. Thank you so much, Mayor Harvey. As the Chandler Chamber, we represent the voice of business and we're also representing over 170,000 employees here in Chandler. We have the unique opportunity to collectively influence business issues that really impact our day-to-day business operations, as well as the future of our community, just as the mayor just said. We know that Chandler is a very well-managed city, thanks to our elected officials. But we are also really fortunate to have a great representation at the federal, state, and local levels here in Chandler. And we are grateful to our elected officials for their dedication to public service. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Chandler Chamber continues to grow our advocacy work on behalf of our community, prioritizing policies and continue to attract and retain business while embracing our diversity here in Chandler. That's what our chamber mission is all about. Since our inception, we have made great progress in growing our Chandler Chamber's Public Policy Committee and enhancing the activity here in our community, and effectively communicating what those policy agendas are with our elected officials. We have a reputation for a large presence in the community and especially in our public policy arena here at the Chandler Chamber, and we had a great 2021. As you can see by the screen behind me, the Chandler Chamber is truly seen as the #1 business resource here in Chandler. We, during all of this COVID, I would like to get rid of that word, but I think it's going to live with us forever. But we started initially, right off the get-go, hosting some roundtable discussion groups. And in just 2021, we were focusing on 10 key industry clusters with chamber-led business roundtable discussions. In fact, many of our elected officials that are here in this room participated with those. And those were held with key community leaders. We had over 1,216 participants giving us on a quarterly basis input on what was going on, whether it was a local hairstylist, all the way up to our larger corporations. It really, and they were small, they were very casual, but we heard from them and really took that messages, and trust me, any of the elected officials, I can hear them nodding already. They know I was on the phone or text messaging them. They knew when the Chandler Chamber was calling, that we really had that business pulse, and we truly appreciate that. We also launched our first Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Certification program with our leadership class that participated in over 3,000 hours of diversity, equity, inclusion training for our community leaders. And in 2021, our Chandler Chamber member input survey garnered the largest response rate in chamber history with a 99.5% approval rating in what the chamber was doing and how we were moving forward. That's incredible. The list goes on, that's just to name a few. In the legislative arena, we weighed in on 58 bills, with 41 of them passing and signed into the law. So thank you, electeds, for listening. We also, I would be remiss if I didn't, and we're going to hear from him in just a few moments, but our collaboration with the U.S. Chamber. We signed on to a number of letters with chambers across the nation. We participated in numerous calls and so forth, and I won't steal Jennie's thunder, but we were very active in making sure that our electeds at the federal level also heard us. Our How We Stand document that is in front of you, that's the book that you received at your tables, and we have more on the table as you leave. But there's also a QR code that is on your agenda for today. You can scan that to get the electronic version. It is also on our website. But this document was created with a group of knowledgeable volunteers who worked diligently to put the Chamber's Policy Committee together. As new legislative session draws near, the committee identifies key issues and prepares the positions contained in this publication. Our volunteers working with our committee are instrumental to maintaining the Chamber's reputation as a strong advocate for business-friendly policies. So if you want to see all of the businesses that really gave us input and were a part of it, that's located in the back of the book, because their work, they make my job very easy, but it's really those hardcore questions that they're asking and bringing to our attention that is really the meat of this whole document. The Chamber has created this How We Stand to serve as a tool to encourage development of the Chandler community. Please take time to look through it and key issues and I'd be happy to sit down and discuss any of those with each of you. We'd also like to thank Salt River Project, because we would not have that beautiful book if it wasn't for their printing services, and we truly appreciate that. And I do have to just tell you a story. The designer of this book happened to be a public policy intern for us probably about 4 years ago, and has now grown. She's graduated and she was going into policy work and has decided she has started her own business in doing that. So we're really proud of those efforts. So at this time, I I would like to have our board chair, Jane Poston, come back to the stage and introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. She's got to be about the busiest woman in Chandler with the Chamber of Commerce. So we're very proud of everything that the Chandler Chamber has done this year. And we are very proud to welcome Jennie Zamel this morning. He is our next speaker from the United States Chamber of Commerce. And with everything going on in Washington, D.C., we appreciate Jennings taking time out of his busy schedule, as he always does, to come and explain everything that's happening and to join us today. He is the Vice President of the Western Region in the Congressional and Public Affairs Division at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The office is responsible for legislative and political grassroots activities in Arizona, California, Hawaii, Nevada, and Utah, and in support of the Chamber's national public policy goals. Before joining the Chamber in 2013, Jennings worked in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Association of Former Members of Congress and at the public affairs firm Mercury, Clark, and Weinstock. Earlier, he worked in the California State Assembly. Jennings also managed and worked on several successful congressional and state legislative campaigns, mostly in Southern California. Jennings received his master's degree in international affairs from the George Washington University. And he has a bachelor's degree in political science and German from the University of California, Riverside. Please join me in welcoming Jennie Zamel.
Thank you for that. Thanks for the introduction. Always good to be here. Let's see, I'll look for the clicker. Here it is. Yeah, always good to be here, obviously, and it's nice after doing it virtually last year to be able to do this in person now, and hopefully we can keep that momentum going and do just about everything from here on out in person. We're not going to have to go backwards. Obviously there's a lot to talk about, but first and foremost, of course, I always want to give kudos to Terry and her team at the Chandler Chamber for everything that they do, putting together the How We Stand document. Their constant engagement and advocacy really at every level of government, but particularly at the federal level. She's exactly right. They've been tremendous partners of ours at the U.S. Chamber. The fact that they sign on so regularly to so many different letters, and then just do things beyond just signing on to letters, right? Whether it's writing op-eds or hosting, the Congressional Delegation. I know they had Congressman Biggs, I think like last month or 2 months ago. Same thing, Congressman Stanton a couple of months ago. That constant engagement and the constant feedback that the Congressional Delegation gets to hear directly from the Chandler Chamber and from the businesses here in Chandler makes all the difference in the world in really getting things done. Makes our job a lot easier too, quite frankly, because we're headquartered in DC, and sometimes people don't want to listen to the folks from DC. They're much more interested in listening to you all. So thank you for that. That it played a big role in getting some major legislative accomplishments over the last couple of years. But last year, of course, we had the big infrastructure bill, which I'll talk about. But it's going to play a pivotal role as well this year. In either getting things done and on a few occasions probably pushing back against some really bad piece of legislation as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the current economic circumstances that we're seeing. I think it's a good way to kind of tee up the conversation on policy, and then of course, given the fact that we're now in a midterm year officially, I'm going to talk a little bit about the looming midterms. Of course, it's an interesting one since we're just coming out of redistricting, so very interesting time to be in politics, that's for sure. So first and foremost, just kind of looking back to what happened in 2021 and looking ahead a little bit to 2022, I think the two major legislative accomplishments that we saw, there were more than that, but really the two big ones were certainly the American Rescue Plan in March. That was obviously a major priority for the Biden administration and for Democrats. They got that through on a partisan basis. And then, of course, we had the infrastructure bill, right? The bipartisan infrastructure deal, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, BIF, whatever you want to call it, getting that done and officially signed into law in November. Big win for the business community. And it's a big win for, really a number of reasons. I think you look at the policy side of it, this is something that we have been advocating for a long time, these critical investments in our nation's physical infrastructure. So we're talking about roads, bridges, highways, ports, waterways, the electricity grid, broadband, $550 billion of new funding for the next 5 years, and all of those things. Big win to get that done. And like I said, this is something we've been pushing for right around 20, 25 years or so at the U.S. Chamber. but it's also a big win politically in the sense that it kind of shows, quite frankly, that governing can still happen. Even in a very divided Washington, when you've got 50-50 Senate, very narrow margin obviously in the House, folks from both sides of the aisle can come together and get a big deal like this done. And quite frankly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that this doesn't happen without Senator Sinema's leadership. She, along with Senator Portman on the Republican side, really led the effort, but Senator Sinema, I think in particular, deserves a lot of kudos here. I don't know if you all recall that on the infrastructure talks that things had kind of gone in the wrong direction, quite frankly, in the spring of 2021. The Biden administration was talking with, at the time, it was West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Those talks kind of went nowhere. And then there was a lot of kind of increasing pressure on the Democrat side to just forego conversations with Republicans. Let's pass an infrastructure bill on a partisan basis. This is just another reason why we need to blow up the filibuster. Both sides can't work together. And Senator Sinema said, no, hold on, let's pump the brakes. We can get a deal done here. Give us another shot. And sure enough, she was able to work not only with Republicans, but then also push back against a lot of the bad ideas or toxic ideas that were coming from her own side of the aisle. And so there kind of grew a group. It's first started about 8 or so, 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats on the Senate side. She was the leader on the Democrat side. That grew to 10, which grew to 20, which grew to 22. And then eventually you had this bipartisan group that was really pushing all the momentum on the infrastructure bill. They got that done across the finish line in August. 69-30 vote. That means you had 19 Republicans, including Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. So really, really big win. And once again, it showed that things can get done in a very, very narrowly divided Washington. And I think what that also accomplishes is it lessens the pressure not only on the filibuster, but then also to pass something like the Build Back Better reconciliation bill. And that was part of our strategy too at the U.S. Chamber when supporting this bill, was that we thought if we can get this done, that lessens the likelihood of a very bad bill like the reconciliation bill from getting enacted. And I think that we've kind of seen some of that come to fruition when you look at Senator Manchin, his remarks on Build Back Better recently. I think that pressure has kind of been alleviated a little bit. So I think that that's a good thing. And of course, I'll talk a little bit more about that bill as well. But this infrastructure package, big, big win. A lot of money coming to the state of Arizona through just kind of various formula funding, and then there's also going to be all kinds of grant opportunities that the state of Arizona and communities can apply for as well. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that to make sure that the money gets spent where it needs to. And then looking out to the rest of 2022, a lot of things that I've listed there. I'm not going to go over all of them for the sake of time, but I did highlight some of the major ones. Like I said, Build Back Better reconciliation bill, definitely going to talk about that. PRO Act is a big, big one here in the state of Arizona. Workforce supply chain, economic issues that we're seeing, obviously those are front and center. Like I said, the future of the filibuster is going to be a big one, and then of course the fact that we're in, right on the cusp of silly season. We'll talk a little bit about the midterm elections. Current state of the economy, it's kind of an interesting time. We're seeing kind of a lot of conflicting messages. There's a lot of good news with the state of the economy, but at the same time there's a lot of caveats as well. And so you see that reflected here in the bullet points. We've got low unemployment, which is great, but we have tremendously weak labor force participation. So right now we're still at about 2 points lower than we were in February of 2020 when we had 63% labor force participation. We're at about 61 right now, which means we're missing a few million workers from what we had right before the pandemic. That continues to be a problem. Strong wage growth, which has been great, but that's been eclipsed by the rate of inflation. So essentially we're seeing a tax increase, right? When the price of goods go up and the amount that we're seeing in our paycheck isn't keeping up with that. We're seeing strong consumer demand, which is a great thing, but supply chains are continuing to struggle to keep up. Services sector has been rebounding, and hospitality, leisure, that's great, but the quit rate has been a problem, and that's been particularly a problem in the services sector. We're seeing kind of all-time highs in the number of folks that are quitting. Small business optimism has also been gradually going up over the course of the pandemic as businesses get their feet underneath them. But there are still looming concerns about COVID. Now we've got the Omicron variant, inflation, workforce issues, supply chain. Those are kind of a drag. And then also on GDP growth. We're seeing strong GDP growth for the most part in 2021. But the national debt continues to be a major problem that lawmakers are going to have to deal with at some point. Got a couple of charts here that just shows the job opening situation right now, or by the end of November, we were looking at about a 3.7 million gap. So there are 3.7 million more job openings than there were people actually looking to work. Major problem, this is one of the largest gaps we've ever seen. And then just the monthly job openings over the last decade, really unprecedented to be where we are at 10.6 million. It's literally double the historical average over the last decade. A few more charts, because apparently I like charts. We've got the inflation numbers here since really April of 2021. That's when we've seen inflation really start to take off shortly after passing the American Rescue Plan. And just last month or in November, we were at 6.8%. That was a 31-year high. And it has been outpacing the amount of money that folks are getting in their paychecks and all those wage growth gains that we've seen. On the quit rate side, of course, like I said, we're looking at kind of all-time highs there. 3%, 4.5 million folks in the workforce quit last month. On the small business optimism side, really kind of cratered, obviously, in March of 2020 with the onset of the pandemic, but has slowly been getting back to where we think it should be, where we were seeing roughly 63% of small businesses that we're surveying fairly optimistic about their circumstances, but still 3/4 of the folks that we survey have been hit by inflation, are raising prices, and over half of them have also been negatively impacted by the workforce crisis and supply chain problems. Speaking of supply chain problems, I've got a chart there that kind of indicates on the bottom right that the number of ships that are out at anchor over off the coast of Southern California, ports of LA and Long Beach. Back in November, it was an average of 84 per day. It's not uncommon to have over 100 ships still out there at anchor. This is probably an issue that's going to persist well into 2022, into the second or third quarter of 2022. So I don't think supply chains are going to be entirely alleviated anytime soon. And then, of course, the debt issue. That's that last chart on the bottom right. We were on pace back in 2019, essentially, to have our debt reach 100% of GDP by 2031. Well, with the pandemic and the fact that we spent $6 trillion addressing COVID, we did that in the middle of 2020 instead. So our debt has spiked, obviously, and that's going to be a major problem for lawmakers for a number of reasons. And at some point, the bill is going to have to come due, and unfortunately, that means taxes may have to be raised, and the business community may have to bear the brunt of that at some point. So that's why that's a big issue to kind of keep an eye on. Speaking of spending too much money or inordinate amount of money, and inflation problems, we've got the Build Back Better bill, which kind of contributes to both of those issues, exacerbates both of those issues. And those are just a couple of the reasons why we at the U.S. Chamber have been strongly outspoken in our opposition to this bill. This is the massive reconciliation bill, the human infrastructure bill that President Biden and the Democrats are trying to push across. $1.75 trillion is the official number. Passed the House at the end of last year, currently in the Senate. We've got a lot of problems with this. Obviously, on the inflation side, big concerns there. The fact that we're spending this amount of money when we're already seeing inflation right around 6.5% or so. And then, quite frankly, a lot of the spending is really front-loaded in this bill. So in the first year of 2022, we'd see over $150 billion in transfer payments. And in the first 5 years, in the first 5-year window, we're going to see $804 billion in deficit finance spending. So most of the revenue that this bill would generate through tax increases doesn't actually come until the latter half of a 10-year window. So the first 5 years, it's going to be mostly spending without money coming in, and obviously we can see why that would be inflationary, and it would just exacerbate the current problems that we're having. Another big issue with this is the fact that there's gimmicks that hide the true cost of the bill, right? So they didn't really make changes to the bill to get it across the finish line. What they did was they just kind of, they put in arbitrary sunsets on some of the programs. They didn't actually change the programs themselves. They just kind of made them last a little shorter to hide the true cost. But really, when you look at things like the child tax credit, which is only for 1 year, and we know that that's not the intent of Congress. We know that they want to reauthorize the child tax credit, the boosted child tax credit. Same thing for child care subsidies, pre-K subsidies. The intent of Congress is not to have these things run out after 6 years and saddle states with the costs. They obviously want to be able to reauthorize those things, ACA, Medicaid expansions, all of those things. If you look at all of those things, instead of with their arbitrary sunsets, and instead of looking at it that way, you actually look at a full 10-year window to get a full picture of what the cost is going to be. Then the true cost of the bill comes closer to about $4.5 trillion. So a massive, massive amount of money. And then you've got on top of that $1.5 trillion worth of tax increases. There's all kinds of other policy issues, price controls on pharmaceuticals, a lot of things that we think are going to hamper growth. And then also, speaking of inflation, you look at the state of Arizona, that chart on the bottom shows the state of Arizona actually has experienced over 7.5% inflation. So it's actually been higher here than the rest of the country. Speaking of tax increases, a lot of bad ideas on the tax side. We were able to get some of the corporate income tax stuff out of it, but the fact that we were going to be looking at a book minimum tax of 15% really doesn't make a lot of sense. It's really going to disincentivize making investments in new, capital projects and new equipment and things like that. It's really going to disincentivize pension contributions as well. And what we've seen with the book minimum tax is that capital-intensive industries, particularly those that rely on tax incentives to make investments and do things like research and development and rely on depreciation, those are the folks that are going to get hit the hardest. So industries like utilities, transportation, manufacturing, construction would look at a tax increase of about 6 to 10%. So that'd be a major, major drag, particularly in the state of Arizona, where those industries are very important. And we've got a number of other tax changes as well that we think are going to be a major drag on growth. And then penalizing businesses. A lot of this stuff has kind of gone under the radar when you look at the national news on BBB. But Osha penalties increased over 400%. That's just a major hit. And you've got things like that. You've got the PRO Act. So you're going to be looking at new civil penalties for NLRA violations, going up to $100,000, and personal liability also being extended to directors and managers for labor-related violations in the workplace. There's all kinds of other language that really kind of stacks the deck in favor of unions as well. You've got enhanced tax credits for EVs and equipment for electric vehicles that are being produced by union shops. Of course, it's a major problem here in the state of Arizona since we're a right-to-work state. That's one of the kind of major points or pieces of attractiveness right here in the state of Arizona, where we can get folks to relocate in Arizona because we're a right-to-work state. Well, that gets undermined with this bill. And there's just a lot of other things that we think are ultimately going to be a drag on growth and really penalizes business. And at the same time, you've got things like tax credit for union dues. Obviously, we can see labor union kind of getting a lot of the benefits, oftentimes at the expense of business. And speaking of those sorts of things, I think the PRO Act is going to be another one that we're going to have to keep an eye on. But going back to the BBB, though, I should mention before I kind of conclude my talk on that, where we are currently on the Build Back Better bill. You may have seen Senator Manchin speaking out against that over the holiday break, right before Christmas, and then kind of poured cold water on it again this week, saying that negotiations have been essentially non-existent. We think that's a great thing. We expect that they could continue talks on this perhaps sometime in February. There's going to be obviously a big push to get something across the finish line. Whatever it is, it's going to look a lot different, I think, from the bill that ultimately passed the House. They're going to probably have to find a few areas of agreement, like climate change or whatever, where Democrats can kind of coalesce and try to get that across the finish line. But as of right now, we're happy that this seems to be on ice, and we're going to continue to push to push against this bill. And Senator Sinema has obviously played a big role in this as well, pushing back against some of the really bad tax ideas. So we'll see what happens, but I think we have to remain vigilant and keep an eye on this one. Same thing for the Protecting the Right to Organize Act. That's the PRO Act. This is a big labor wish list bill. Number of really bad ideas in here. I think for Arizona, the fact that it would essentially strip Arizona's ability to be a right-to-work state. It imports California's AB5, the ABC test for independent contractors, making it very difficult to hire independent contractors. You'd essentially have to convert them to employees. All kinds of really bad things in this bill. I don't want to kind of spend too much time going over it because there's so many bad ideas, but I think this is something that you're going to hear a lot more about here in Arizona. You've probably already seen a lot of ads on TV, op-eds, things like that. I think that's going to continue, especially because Senators Kelly and Sinema are two of the three senators in the Democrat side that have not co-sponsored this bill. It passed on a party line vote on the House, and there is a lot of pressure because it's Labor's #1 legislative priority, a lot of pressure on those folks to get this across the finish line in the Senate. So we're gonna have to remain, once again, very vigilant on this one and making sure that we're reaching out to Senators Sinema and Kelly, thanking them for staying off of this and encouraging them to continue to stay off of this really, really bad bill. And then, when you think about things like the PRO Act and the various partisan pieces of legislation, obviously a lot of talk about the voting rights legislation on the Senate side that could come up next week or the week after. I think we're going to be expecting that, quite frankly. I think the infrastructure bill is probably the last major bipartisan win that we're going to get for a while, and it's looking very partisan in 2022, and that means that I think the heat is really going to intensify on the filibuster, on cloture, and changing the rules, right? So instead of needing 60 votes to file cloture to move from debate to a vote on the Senate, there's talk of making changes that brings that down to a simple majority, or having a talking filibuster, or making sure that you've got 41 folks that are objecting that are actually there. There's all kinds of talk about how they can change this essentially to pass a partisan agenda without minority consultation. And that is a very, very bad thing when we're talking about the functioning of the Senate. It's a bad thing for our republic. And it's a bad thing for the business community. We need minority consultation, and that's what the cloture rule does, to have that 60 vote threshold. It brings both parties together. It enables bipartisan buy-in, and when you have bipartisan buy-in, you can have durable legislation that can last. And that's key. And I think Senator Sinema really kind of summed it up really nicely in her comment. She wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post a couple of months ago, saying essentially, my support for retaining 60 vote threshold is not based on the importance of any particular policy. It's based on what is best for our democracy. The filibuster compels moderation and helps protect the country from wild swings between opposing poles. And you can only imagine, with the Senate being so narrowly divided, going back and forth every 2 years, we could see radical changes, right, from right to left. And as the business community, that's just not a situation we want to be in. We can't plan ahead if we're going to see these kind of massive sweeping changes every couple of years. So big one to keep an eye on, because I think the filibuster is going to get a lot of talk, especially here in the state of Arizona. Again, Senator Sinema really front and center on this one. She's done a great job of pushing back, and she's going to need more encouragement from the business community to hold the line on this important issue. And then just quickly, I'll wrap it up with the political preview, because like I said, it is a midterm year. It's interesting to see what's going to happen. Of course, a lot of this is going to be based off of President Biden's approval rating, and then of course we've got the redistricting and all of that's been taking place. When you look at the approval rating, it has really gone down since August. And that was the kind of botched pullout of Afghanistan. Ever since then, he's been very much in the negative. Same thing with Vice President Kamala Harris. So I think that's going to be a major anchor on Democrats and their chances in the midterms, and that's why Republicans feel so bullish and optimistic that they're going to make significant gains, especially on the House. And you look at some of the other factors too, right? Some of the other polls showing that the vast majority of Americans think we're on the wrong track. They don't approve of how President Biden has been handling the pandemic or the economy. And then also in the generic congressional ballot, very interesting that Republicans currently have a 1.6 point advantage. That's pretty rare for Republicans to have an advantage in the generic congressional poll. So I think that's pretty telling as well. And then once again, midterm election trends. We know kind of how these typically go. The first midterm election after a new president historically has gone against the president's party. The one exception, of course, being in 2002, the most recent exception. Then, of course, that was after September 11th, so very different circumstances from 2010 and 18. But in 10 and 18, we saw huge waves in response to opposition to the party in power, and I think there's broad expectation that we're going to see the same kind of thing in 2022. On the Senate side, it's a little bit more difficult than the House to forecast, just because Republicans are playing a lot more defense than Democrats. They've got 20 seats up as opposed to 14 for Democrats, and the fact that we've got a number of high-profile retirements on the Republican side in really tough states. So you've got Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Ohio in particular, where we're going to have to keep an eye on. We don't know what Senator Johnson is going to do in Wisconsin, but that's also going to be a toss-up seat. And then some of the other big key races, of course, right here in the state of Arizona with Senator Kelly running once again, and I'm sure you all are tired of Senate races in Arizona. And we've got Nevada with Cortez Masto, and of course with Georgia as well. They're all kind of considered toss-up races. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, but ultimately don't think there's going to be any massive change one way or the other on the Senate side. We're 50-50 right now, so probably a couple seats one way or the other. That's probably what we'll see in 2022. And then on the House side, like I said, broad expectation that Republicans are going to fare pretty well in the House. Of course, Democrats already have a raise or thin majority right now. And then we look at kind of redistricting as kind of probably so far from what we've seen not been to Republicans' advantage quite as much as we would have expected, since Republicans control most of the states that have legislatures redoing the maps. But overall, I think on balance, it's probably going to be to Republican advantage. And then, of course, like I said, all of those poll numbers that are really skewing against Democrats going to help Republicans quite a bit. And then here in the state of Arizona, very interesting to see how the maps were redrawn here as well. We have a 5-4 Democrat advantage in Arizona. I think that most folks think that that'll probably flip 5-4 or maybe even 6-3, depending on what kind of a year we have, if we do have a wave year. That seems to be the expectation where things are going to go in favor of Republicans in the state of Arizona. We saw some major changes, particularly down in Tucson with the new Arizona 6 seat, and then also O'Halloran's seat, right? The former Arizona 1, that became a lot more Republican as well. So we'll keep an eye on those seats, and then Stanton, right next door, his seat became very, very competitive. So interesting kind of to see how that plays out. And then just one last interesting fact, the fact that nationwide we've seen the number of single digit seats, so seats that have a partisan gap in the single digits, it's really declined. It's gone down 26% from what it was previously, so 62 to 46 seats now would be considered very competitive. I think that's going to continue to be a problem. We're seeing safer and safer Democrat and Republican seats, which means that we're going to see both polls continue to move probably farther and farther away from one another, which makes our job a lot more difficult in Washington to get things done sometimes. But that's kind of the trend that we're seeing. That's where we are on the House side, and then I guess I'll take any questions. Once again, thanks for having me, and thanks for all that you do.
Great, thank you so much, Jennie. I think all of our heads are kind of spinning. It's a lot of information. So Ward, I have you on that side. We have time for just one or two questions for Jennings. Crickets. Here we go.
Jennings, you mentioned Senator Zamel a lot,
Yeah.
which is interesting, and it's true, and she's held off the filibuster. But do you think it's odd? I mean, I don't, because a lot of us talk about the media, but that they camp outside Senator Zamela's office, waiting to ask her about the filibuster for the 100th time.
Mm-hmm.
But after 2.5, 3 years, we have no idea where Senator Mlk Kelly is on the filibuster.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that Senator Kelly's done a great job, whether that's a testament to him and his team or to media's bias to go after cinema, I don't know, but he's done a good job of kind of just laying low on some of these things, whether that's the filibuster or BBB or the PRO Act. Certainly has not been out in front nearly as much as Senator Sinema. Sinema has definitely taken the majority of the slings and arrows on that issue, but I imagine at some point, especially since he's going to be running for office, running for re-election here in November, he's going to have to go on the record on a couple of these things, and there might even be some votes that force him to do so. So we'll see.
Great. Other questions? Oh, we have another one over here. Ward's over there in the corner. Please make your way over here.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate that. I'm glad that the infrastructure bill passed as well. And I'm just wondering, do we know which Arizona representatives voted for it and which didn't? And because, again, we support that, and the chamber supports that. I'm just wondering how Arizona voted for that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, obviously we know on the Senate side, we got bipartisan support. We know where Sinema and Kelly were on that one. On the House side, it became much more of a partisan exercise. Unfortunately, a lot of that had to do with the timing. It passed the Senate in August. And then you had the August break, and a lot of Republicans in particular heard from right-leaning groups about how bad it was and that they should vote against it. And then the fact that first implicitly and then explicitly it was tied to the reconciliation bill. That's at least from, President Biden made that statement a couple of times, Speaker Pelosi. That really made it tough for a lot of Republicans to get behind. I think had we seen a vote in August on the House side, we would have seen several dozen Republicans vote for it. But because it took so long and because it was linked to reconciliation, even though they were separate, there was this misconception they were linked, that really kind of withered our support. So ultimately, we only got 13 Republicans on board on that one.
Were there any Arizona representatives who voted for that?
So I think it was 5-4 Arizona. So it was party line in Arizona.
All right. Great questions. Let's give Jennings another round of applause. So this presentation will be available on our website as well after, because you had some great data charts up there that I think were really informative. So we'll have those up later today. So again, thank you for joining us. At this time, we are going to roll into our elected official part of the program. And we are going to kick this off with our Congressional Delegation, and we're going to have Congressman Biggs come on up here as well. We'll kick it off with him, and then I think we have Congressman Stanton. He is going to join us remotely on the screen here. So, Congressman Biggs.
So are Greg and I going to be together talking? No?
No.
Oh, so I'm
You're
going.
first, and then we'll talk.
I see. Okay.
Do you
Well-
want to talk together?
No, I'll just all the best to Greg. I mean, it's good to serve with Greg. We talk often, and appreciate him and his willingness to talk. We disagree a lot, as you might guess, but we talk often. So. And I want to thank Jennings, by the way. That was a really good presentation. And thank you, Terry, and all who put this together. And I want to just congratulate Mayor Hartke because he's a great mayor, is he not? I'm just so impressed by Mayor Hartke. And also, in the wonderful city of Chandler. I feel fortunate because I represent the Southeast Valley, which is the best congressional district in the entire doggone country. It's fantastic. So I thought I would just, I don't even know how long I'm talking for, Terry.
I'm getting ready to come and get the mic from you. So.
I better go faster.
Exactly. We got a lot of other people.
Yes, I get that. I'm sorry, my bad. I was just looking through your document though, and one of the things that I think is really important because it deals with everything from the inflationary pressure that we have, and that is your desire to receive federal debt reduced. And I will tell you that both parties have been horrible at that, quite frankly. It's an embarrassment to me as a Republican that the Republicans have been only slightly less spending irresponsibly than the other side. The reality is that is a major challenge. It is something that I fight for all the time to bring more rationality into our budgeting process, which right now is lost regular order. We don't do it the way we're supposed to do it, and bad process is going to lead to bad policy, and that's going to lead to, quite frankly, a robust growth in national debt. And if the BBB bill passes, all bets are off on how we're going to put that genie back in the bottle. So I'll just tell you that it's a great honor to serve, and I will be ever vigilant on that aspect of your booklet of goals here. And thanks, and God bless you, and look forward to hearing from Greg. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol.
Congressman Stanton, you there?
All right.
All right, you're on.
You've got the floor.
Good to hear from my friend Congressman Biggs, and I want to congratulate him on representing the second best district in the United States. AC09, which also covers Chandler as well. He and I get to share. Chandler is, of course, the best district in the country, but he and I have a chance to spend a lot of time together serving on the Judiciary Committee, as well as spending lots of time in airports and often next to each other, sitting on airplanes on our flights back and forth to Washington. So, Congressman Biggs, it is great to see you, Mayor Harkey, and all the other elected officials. Thank you for your outstanding service to the people and community of the city of Chandler. I just wanted to add one thing to what Jennie said. Jennie said we need to do more things in a bipartisan way, and that may have ended. I'm hoping and praying that is not the case, because one thing that in the House we are going to have to come together on is to pass the CHIPS Act. We've got to get the CHIPS Act passed so that our semiconductor industry, obviously Chandler is the center of the universe in the United States of America on semiconductor, particularly with Intel, and we have put ourselves at a competitive disadvantage in that regard. And passage of the CHIPS Act, which is going to be a bipartisan bill, will put Intel on much stronger footing to compete internationally in this critically important industry of semiconductor. Those of you who worked with me for a long time know that I've been, as mayor and both in Congress, a broken record on the issues that are of highest priority to me: immigration reform, trade, and infrastructure investment. It's the reason why I serve on Judiciary Committee, is because that's the committee of jurisdiction as it relates to immigration reform, and I know the Chamber is a high priority for you. No state in the country will better benefit economically from immigration reform than our state of Arizona. Obviously, with trade, I was proud to be one of the early Democratic adopters of USMCA. I think it was a big bipartisan win, working with President Trump at the time, and then our economy will greatly benefit from that. And it's a model for future trade agreements. Obviously, this competition with China is going to be one of the major themes in the years to come. And the United States having stronger trade relationships with other countries is going to help lead us to advantage and win that competition with China. And of course, infrastructure. And I was proud to support the infrastructure bill. It was done in a bipartisan way, and that is going to greatly benefit Chandler, our region, and the entire state of Arizona. $5 billion for roads and bridge improvements, significant resources for aviation improvements for airports, including Chandler Municipal Airport, significant resources for water and water infrastructure. There is no more important issue to the future of Arizona than securing our water supplies. That's something that Congressman Biggs and I and the delegation are going to have to work on together. We have to make the case that the Colorado River and the future of the Colorado River is of national importance, because it benefits 30 to 40 million people, and it's obviously the basis of the economic growth for the state of Arizona. So we need to make the case that investment in securing that water future is of critical importance. And then broadband. We have put ourselves at a competitive disadvantage as it relates to broadband, and the infrastructure deal is going to go a long way to make the United States much more competitive as it relates to high-speed internet, not just in urban areas, but rural, tribal communities as well. So those are the issues I'm going to continue to focus in on: immigration reform, trade, infrastructure, and securing our water supply. So Terry and Ward in the Chamber, I look forward to working closely with all of you to get those important things done for the people of our community. Thanks so much. Great. Look forward to working with you in this legislative session.
Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate your time. Thank you, Congressman Biggs, for your comments as well. So I'm Ward Nichols. I get to be the incoming chair of the Chamber Board of Commerce in 2023, and it's my privilege and opportunity to be with you today. And I get to bring up the elected officials. And what we're going to do is we're going to, due to the number of elected officials that we have here, and the time, to keep time going and respectful, we're going to give each of you about 1.5 to 2 minutes to talk about what your priorities are for this upcoming year, and any comments that you'd like to give us on our How We Stand booklet. We would appreciate that as well. So let's start with our Maricopa County elected officials, and Mr. Sellers, would you like to come up and say a few things?
Good morning and thank you. I can make this brief because most of you get to see me all the time. I've been very involved with the Chandler Chamber. Chandler is my home. But I just wanted to say that I'm very optimistic about 2022. You know, we are the fastest growing county in the United States, and we've had over $35 billion in investments planned for this area in the last year. So I feel that most of the officials I work with are really ready for us to move forward. A realistic plan for critical infrastructure is needed if we're going to maintain the environment and lifestyle that has made us attractive for companies and people to move here. With extra dollars coming from the federal infrastructure bill and a governor who understands the important role infrastructure plays in our economic future, I'm excited to get down to business on my priorities. I know many of my colleagues are ready to quit supporting the people who keep trying to rewrite history so that we can all spend more time focusing on our future. Too many people are making issues political. It should not be. It's time to accept that we work together on issues that should be nonpartisan so we can more easily put these issues behind us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sellers. Just a comment. You know, these elected officials, when they get elected to office, regardless of party or anything, they are there for trying to make things better for our country, for our state, for our local areas. And they put a lot of work and time into doing this. And I'd just like to make sure we give them all a really heavy round of applause for their sacrifice that they're made from their families and their businesses and things to serve. So thank you. So next up, we'd like to bring up our county recorder, Mr. Richard.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Chandler Chamber. Thank you to Terry for having me. My name is Stephen Richer. I'm the Maricopa County Recorder. Prior to this, I was an attorney and a businessman. I'm still a businessman. Many of you probably don't know what the county recorder even does. We record documents, over 1 million public documents a year. We maintain the voter registration database of about 2.6 million registered voters. We're the second largest voting jurisdiction in the United States. And together with Board of Supervisors, we administer elections. Prior to taking this office, my top 6 policy priorities would have been taxes, 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 regulation, regulation, regulation. But that's no longer the case. I work every day with about 160 people. They're normal people, they're Arizonans, they're good people. Not a day goes by when there's not an attempt or a threat to rape, kill, hang, guillotine, imprison, or otherwise slaughter some of those people because people in leadership positions continue to lie and continue to spread conspiracy theories. Please don't be one of those people.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Let's bring up Mr. Cook, our county assessor.
Well, one of the things that I always get blamed as being the assessor is being the tax collector. So I am here to say I am not the tax collector, but I do unfortunately enable those policymakers to make policy on tax rates that eventually go to the treasurer that collects your taxes. Eddie Cook, the county assessor, been in the role almost 2 years as of Valentine's Day 2 years ago. So Valentine's has a different meaning for me now because I got to take on a greater role here in Maricopa County. As I like to say that County Recorder Stephen Richard and I always talk about we're going to have the most boringest office in the county. Well, I'm here to say that the assessor's office is the most boringest office in the county, and I'm grateful for Stephen for being in his role here at the county, as well as Jack Sellers. We have a fantastic leadership here in Maricopa County focused on building community, and that's really the most important part, is building community. And here in the assessor's office, one of the things that's very confusing to the public is that card that you get from my office every year. So education to the public is really my priority, helping folks understand what property assessment is about. But your property taxes are used for very important services that many of the elected officials have to make policy on. So, with that, I appreciate everyone's time, and again, Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Appreciate your time. All right, we're going to jump over to the Arizona Corporation Commission, and we have Chairwoman Peterson with us. Chairwoman.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Leah Mudkis-Peterson. I chair our Arizona Corporation Commission. And I'll tell you, as a former chamber president, I ran the Tucson Hispanic Chamber. It's so fun to be here this morning. Thank you, Terry, for the invitation and to be in the chamber crowd. Wanted to also tell you how proud we are to have worked with the city of Chandler on the Intel expansion and to ensure that they have electricity to get that up and rolling. So congratulations to Chandler on that. And just tell you that the Corporation Commission, we're a board of 5, and we're going to continue to ensure that we have safe, reliable, and affordable utilities. Thanks again.
Appreciate it. So we're going to run into our state legislature now, and we're going to start with Mr. Mesnard. And when you come up, just also tell us one priority that you're working on for this upcoming session. So, Senator Mesnard.
And we're having Senator Mesnard get up here. If we could have all of the other senators that are here in the room make their way up here to kind of keep the flow going. So any other senators, if you want to come up here, and then we'll jump from there. Go ahead, Senator.
All right, well, I will keep this brief. Good morning, Happy New Year to all of you. I always enjoy this sort of pre-session opportunity to connect with you, and obviously we'll have an open door through the session. You are going to hear a lot about tax policy this year. As a reminder, we passed a historic tax package last year that actually encompassed quite a few things in the booklet here. However, right after we passed that tax package, the court made a ruling that many of us were happy about relating to Prop 208 that would have made us do something different had we known they were going to make that decision. So we'll be back at it this year, revisiting that. I do think you're going to see an ongoing effort to reduce property taxes, which I know is mentioned there, as well as an effort to go to the ballot in 2022 on the business personal property tax exemption, which, as you know, is a form of double taxation. We tried this a few years ago unsuccessfully. I think you're going to see an effort to bring it back so that we can help our small businesses in 2022. So I look forward to working with all of you, and again, Happy New Year to all.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it. So, okay, we're going to switch over to the House of Representatives now for the state, and we've got Representative Jermaine on video here. She had a sick child and needed to stay with them today, so we're going to let her lead off, and while she's talking, if any of the other members of the House of Representatives would like to come up and be on standby, we would appreciate it. So, Representative Jermaine.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Terry and the Chandler Chamber for accommodating this working mom. Like many parents, when I have a sick child, I have to telecommute in and work remotely. I'm State Representative Jennifer Jermaine from Legislative District 18. That's the cities of Tempe, Mesa, West Chandler, and Ahwatukee portion of Phoenix. I am the ranking member on the Public Safety, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, and I also serve on the Government and Elections Committee. My big focus this year is going to be continuing on reforming victim services and our missing persons rules and regulations concerning the state of Arizona. We really do need to update all of our statutes and update our victim compensation fund, because when you're the victim of a violent crime, you should not go bankrupt and you should not lose your home because you were the victim of a violent crime. So thank you, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, Representative Jermaine. Representative Winiger.
Hello. Great to be here. Terry and the Chamber does such an amazing job. Thank you for everything. State Representative Jeff Winiger. I'm the chair of the Commerce Committee. As a lot of you might know, I work on a lot of business issues. I worked with a lot of you personally trying to help you find resources during the pandemic. A few bills that I'm working on this year. Not being able to use your office and taxpayer money to advertise yourself, especially during campaign season. When I was on Chandler City Council working with Mayor Harkey, we passed something that said, you didn't get to have your TV show on the access cable, the highly rated access cable TV show, during election season. It's just an unfair advantage, and I look at, if you see certain people having commercials during Sunday Square Off, or they have a billboard, as you're driving down saying, pay your taxes. Not our current person, but that used to happen. And it's like, why would you need your name on there right then? I'm running a bill for State 48, our hometown people here. They have a foundation. It's the first license plate bill I've ever ran. A lot of people hate license plate bills, but it helps their foundation and helps out our hometown people here. I plan on getting that through. Unemployment. I know a lot of people are dealing with unemployment. We need to make sure we have the systems to serve those who are really unemployed, but a lot of you as business owners have been talking to me, and we're seeing a couple things. You have to apply for a job to keep your unemployment. Over here, you have to accept a job if you're offered it. But there's this gray area in between, and a lot of people are applying online, and then they're just ghosting, this newest term, they're ghosting you as an employer, and so they still get to say they applied for the job, and they didn't turn down a job, because they're not responding to you. I'm gonna look, see if we can fix that. If anybody else has any ideas or issues you're running into that, please get in touch with me. And last thing, I am running for the Treasurer's Office. I'm not doing this just because of that, but I think unclaimed property should be moved from the Department of Revenue to the Treasurer's Office. I don't think that the tax man really has an incentive to give you back your money that's sitting in an account somewhere. And I think the Treasurer's Office can do a much better job at getting that back out to people, to advertising it, and that gets money back in our economy, sales tax dollars coming in because people have their real property back. Thank you, Jeff Winiger, great to see you.
Thank you, Ward. Good evening, or good afternoon. I guess I'm not sure what time it is.
Still morning.
It is still morning, I think. So, Representative Mark Fincham, I represent LD 11. I currently serve on the Judiciary Committee, as well as Natural Resources and Public Safety. What you'll see coming, I think, out of my sphere in the legislature, we're working on criminal justice reform. A lot of that has to do with crimes against property and felony convictions. Quite frankly, as I'm a 21-year DPS officer out of West Michigan, and I look at the crimes that we have classified as felonies, the fact that that crime stays on somebody's record forever. Bad decisions made as an 18-year-old will haunt people throughout their lives. Especially people who have maybe one encounter with the courts. Their voting rights are gone, their civil rights are interrupted, even after they pay their debt to society. I do not believe a civil society wants to live that way. So one of the things that we are examining is the expungement at a 5-year mark. We've got tons of data that shows when you have got an individual who has served their time, paid the cost, 5 years after, they're productive human beings, they learned a lesson. Why not reward that and continue to reward that with restoration of voting rights and restoration of civil rights? So that's one important thing that we are working on. It's going to be a bit of a heavy lift because there's a lot of organizational lack of inertia, shall I say, both on the court side and on law enforcement side. So there are some things that we have to work through on that. Number two is definitely going to be the tax package. I believe that we tax way too much. And as a fiscal conservative, 3 years in a row we have billion-dollar surpluses. We need to leave that money back in the pockets of the taxpayers. Then finally, number three, you're going to see a package of election integrity matters. Everything from watermarks on ballots to a change. It seems kind of odd that you would say that an electronic record of the ballot should be hidden from the people. Now, I have never, I shouldn't say never, it just happened. When Garrett Archer compliments me on an elections bill and says, way to go, thanks for making these records a public record, because they're an image, they're not actually the ballot. And if that image is locked down so that it can't be altered, why not allow that to be viewed by the voter? That's one small step towards restoring voter confidence. I want to know, in fact, the number one call that I get to my office is I can't verify that my ballot is sitting with the county, and you can fill in all 15 counties because it's not just one county. I can't verify that my ballot, the way I cast it, is sitting with the county. So there's a couple of steps that we've got right now, a bill that will probably be dropping into today or early next week that deals with ballot fraud countermeasures, watermark, audit trail, all of that. It's a fairly simple bill, but it does have some pretty specific requirements. I am running for Secretary of State, and number one goal, restore voter confidence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Representative.
Hi, I'm Representative Michelle Udall. I serve in LD 25, which is in Mesa. I chair the Education Committee. I also serve on Appropriations and will be chairing the subcommittee, the Appropriations Subcommittee, Healthcare Committee. So most of my focus is on education policy. That's the most important thing, and the reason that, for me, and the reason that I ran for office is because I am passionate about ensuring that our students receive an excellent education. And so the bills, the main ones that you'll see from me this year are focused on improving the quality of education for our students. We have a plan I've been working on with the governor's office that we hope to have no more failing schools within 3 years. We'd like to see serious long-term improvements in our schools. I have another one to allow access to dual enrollment to every student in the state. And we'll do that through great areas like yours, where we have a lot of dual enrollment teachers, if they're willing to allow students to live remote into their classrooms and participate in those classrooms from around the state. So we're making an effort to make sure every student has the opportunity to do dual enrollment and AP as they are prepared for those classes. So that'll be my focus this year, and I'm also running for Superintendent of Public Instruction, and would love your support. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Paul.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the Chandler Chamber for hosting this breakfast, and thank you to all of you for taking the time out of a cold Friday morning to hear what our priorities are. I'm State Representative Jennifer Pollock. I represent here in Chandler in District 17. I'm the ranking member on House Education, and I will be serving on the Judiciary Committee this term. As you can imagine, my highest priorities do have to do with education. One of the bills that I'll be running this time is a priority of the Chandler Unified School District, and it is with the district additional assistance, making sure that that is indexed to inflation, just like we do for the charter schools. Another bill that I will be running is full-day kindergarten. That way we can make sure that our students are starting out with a really strong foundation across the state, not just in areas that can afford to provide that program. The last thing that I want to bring to your attention is that you will be hearing a lot about the aggregate expenditure limit in the next couple of months. That's something that we need to address by March 1st, or the schools will have to cut $1.2 billion from their budget during the fourth quarter of the school year. So it's critical that we work together to address that issue. We need a 2/3 vote, so that'll be an example of where Democrats and Republicans have to work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative.
Good morning, Chandler. I am so glad to see every one of you. Thank you so much for being here. Despite Omicron, you are here, and that is fabulous. I think frequently this room is twice this size, so for those of you who are here, woohoo, thank you. This is great. I am Mitzi Epstein. I represent District 18, and I want to talk to you about some of the folks that you maybe don't listen to or haven't had an opportunity to hear from. starting with a corrections officer I spoke with the other day who said, you know, we have a bad joke in corrections that maybe we should teach the inmates how to turn the lights on and off because there aren't going to be many others who want to take this job for much longer. A worthy wage is so important for all of our state workers, and our corrections officers are leading the way in many ways in that they are such an important job, and they're not getting paid as they should be. When you look at the graph of state workers, the graph for where they should be, just based on inflation, goes up, and the graph of where they're being paid is pretty flat. It looks like an alligator's mouth. Well, we need to close that alligator mouth and make sure that we are paying our state workers a worthy wage. Another group that needs a worthy wage are caregivers. From the people who take care of your children when you're young, to your seniors as your parents age, caregivers are such an important part of our economy, and they have no voice. But they really need also a worthy wage, and we need them to be there for us. We have changed for the caregivers who help our developmentally disabled community, we've changed it from being a career where they could improve and help people more and become a supervisor to now it's a dead-end job. And we really need to stop that. Caregivers deserve a worthy wage. And finally, teachers deserve a worthy wage. And we have not done enough to help the salaries of our teachers. Arizona still funds our schools in the bottom of the barrel, and we are not bottom of the barrel people. Our children are not bottom of the barrel people, and it's time for us to invest in our children to make sure that they are ready to support all that they can be in their future and in our future. We need to make sure that we're doing TANF appropriately. Over time, we have been taking money away from needy families and children and putting it into DCS, the Department for Child Support. That is such a backwards idea. If instead we were investing in preventing neglect and preventing child abuse, we wouldn't have to spend it on the back end trying to punish parents for being poor. So we can do a lot with our budget. All these things can be fixed with our budget. We just have to have the priority of taking care of our children and taking care of the people who give care to others. So these will be my priorities. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you to the legislators that have been here today. We're going to move on to our local city officials. And I just checked with the mayor just to make sure that he didn't need any more time. And so he had his previous comments. So we're going to jump to Vice Mayor Stewart to open our comments. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Warren, and thank you for everyone here, especially we serve for holding this event in the chamber. This is an incredible morning for all of us to get together and network. So over coffee and donuts. So thank you so much for putting this together. I got to tell you, looking at the notes here, Chandler will continue to be a positive community moving through 2022. We had a very balanced approach to this pandemic, and we will continue to do so. And I will continue to work with the best mayor and council in the state to be a champion for our businesses, especially mom and pop. They got hammered these past 2 years, and so Chandler will continue to work with them. But when I think about what I'm going to be a champion for into 2022 is, recently I was appointed to the study committee for blockchain and cryptocurrency. Thank you, Jeff, for supporting our efforts there. There's a lot going on in cybersecurity, and blockchain can certainly solve that, as well as Representative Fincham. I think there is an opportunity with blockchain for election security as well, and being able to give people immediate view of the data that's put into the system. It shouldn't take 3 weeks to find out who won an election in Arizona. So, moreover, Chandler will continue to create an opportunity for people that work and live here. We will remove regulation. We will make it easier to do business. And furthermore, we will continue to make it a safe community by adding police, giving the fire department what they need and resources, and remembering that City Hall is a customer service department. And I love that our city manager says that, right? He calls our community customers. He calls the community people that we serve. So we will continue to foster that culture in Chandler. Thank you so much, Terry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I see Councilmember Rowe standing over here on standby, so come on up, Councilmember Rowe.
Good morning, folks. Hey, this room is full of business owners. We've got healthcare folks out here. We've got political parties, school district leadership. Where does this happen? Where else does this happen? And so my hat is off to the Chamber of Commerce for bringing folks together where we can, where we get to make friends and actually share ideas and be available to hear from you all as to what's important to you. So my name is Terry Rowe. I'm running for the State House in LD12, the new LD12, but I don't want to distract from that because this year is my last opportunity to be involved with our budget. And so I will continue to work with our city manager, Josh, to keep our budget under control. And Chandler has a great record of doing that. And, but to our future leaders that will be carry on after I'm gone, our budget, pay the bills, balance the budget, take care of the bricks and the mortars, the streets, the street lights, make sure we have good water, make sure we have good police, make sure we have good fire, the stuff that isn't that fancy, but it is what people want and they rely on without much thought because it just happens here in Chandler. And so we have great streets and our police officers and our retirement system for our public safety folks. That is such an important thing, and every year Chandler is working very hard to pay down an unfunded liability for their retirement. Hey, that money, we could use that in a lot of other places, but Chandler's committed to making sure that that bill gets paid so that future council will have a sound budget, a sound community, and paying our bills, that's where it's at. So listen, thank you all very much, and we're going to have a great 2022. Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, sweet. Well, you guys, I've been in office just under a year. Well, just almost under a year, right? And January 14th will be 1 year in office, and I am ecstatic. I'm excited. I'm a new council member, so all the ideals of when you get in office just flourish up to the top. So some of the things that I plan on continuing to work on this year is housing. Chandler is faced with a big crisis. We have a good crisis, which is Intel is expanding, but we need more housing. We need more housing, and we need builders to come to Chandler and build up, not just build out, but build up. Because of so many people moving here, we need that help. Not just regular housing for ownership, but workforce housing. As you know, prices for housing has continued to go up. Inflation is going up. And so people's wages are not necessarily going up, but we do need to make sure we keep that proportion. Another thing that I plan on continuing to work on is the fact that Chandler received a lot of ARPA dollars. Those ARPA dollars we set forth to help some of our community neighbors who may have been facing eviction and things of that nature. Our mayor and council, we wanted to make sure that they have money to help pay the rent. So getting the word out there. Over Christmas, I dealt with several community neighbors that called me because they were facing eviction and they needed dollars. And I can tell you that we have the greatest team in the city of Chandler because as soon as they contacted me, I contacted our city manager along with our staff and team, and they got both of those individuals, both of those neighbors taken care of immediately. So we're putting your dollars to work and we're making sure that it gets to the community that's in need. One of the other things I would like to continue to work on is, as you know, I did a teen suicide event that really addressed mental health. I want to continue to work with the elected officials as well as our community neighbors and our anchor institutions to continue to put forth mental health issues and finding ways to combat it. The pandemic was huge. It was devastating for a lot, and our youth was largely impacted by this. And so we want to continue to work with our leaders in our community to help put mental health as a priority. And I talked to mayor and I talked to council. I want to continue to figure that out. So if you can help me figure that out so that we can come together as a community and say this is a priority, this is needed, I would love to get your support in that. And this is the last thing I'll say. I am very thankful for the opportunity to be your elected official, but also I'm a very open-minded individual, and I am interested in hearing your ideals. Many of the colleagues, many of the leaders that's in this room, I have not had a chance to meet with you yet, but I would love to meet with you. There's 3 more years left of my term, and I work with several partners already, but I want to continue to do that because I want to do a good job for the residents. And we are here together in this room because we care about the residents. I care about it. I'm a very compassionate, loving person. So I want to hear what you have to say, but if you don't tell me, I won't know. If you don't tell us, we won't know. And so tell me so I can know, then I can be a better leader in the space that I'm in. Thank you for your time.
Councilmember Ellis.
Oh, no, I can't follow that. You got it, girl. You got it. You got it. You got it. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine Ellis, and I am your council member for the city of Chandler. Thank you so much. Last year was a year that was one of the hardest years of my life, but it was one of the best years of my life because I became your council member in this city. I promised you there were 4 things that I was going to work on, and I have worked very hard in 2021 to make them become reality. There were more free market solutions, the small businesses that you see represented here with the chamber, working together every single day, uplifting you. We put money back in the community to help our small business continue to grow and continue to access what they needed. Education, higher education for me. I continue working with our staff to speak to our colleges and universities, starting to think about the future of our workforce here in the city of Chandler. How we're gonna move forward, because we know what happened then, but now we're looking forward in the future with that. Embracing diversity. This is an area where I want to continue to thrive in with your help. Our city is a very inclusive city. We've been like that. I've lived here for 34 years. I know that we are. But now we are taking it to the next level, where we're saying, don't just stay away and tell us we don't include you. Come to the table. There is a seat for you. We welcome you there. Right. So please come. Please join us in the things that we do. And last but not least, I am standing here to say today that I love it here in Chandler. Everything I do is for the love of our city. It is important to me that you know that you live in a city where every one of us who work at that level, we take the time to think about your well-being. We take the time to think about the things that makes you tick, the things that makes you who you want to be in this city. Every single day that we show up at that office, we are doing one thing and one thing alone, making your life better. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellis. What a great team we have in Chandler. All right, next would like to hear from our superintendent of Chandler.
Renee Lopez.
Mr. Lopez had to leave. So, yep, but thank you, Mr. Harris. So,
forget about my boy.
I know, we're not going to forget about Renee. Yes, Mr. Lopez was here and he had to step out early, so thank you. Mr. Narducci from Chandler Public Schools.
Good morning. I think I'm far away. I'll take it so you can see who I am. Good morning. I'm the guy that gets to keep you over 9:30. So any complaints, go ahead and send them my way. It's great to be with distinguished officials here, as well as everybody that's making a difference. I think everybody in this room is here to make a difference for children in Arizona, for a way of life in Arizona, as well as for our residents within our communities. Chandler is such a fantastic place. I decided to move here 25 years ago from Tucson, and picked Chandler as my residence because of the way it was managed, because of the way it was run, and because how great the schools were. We have Kyrene School District here represented as well, Laura's here as well. We work together towards making exceptional opportunities for children. We have a world-class learning environment. We have a world-class quality individuals that are being employed through our district, and I'm very proud to have been just selected as to continue that great tradition of education that has happened in Chandler School District moving forward. Didn't know I was going to be, thank you. Didn't know that. Okay, back in the room, we didn't hear from you. That's okay. I didn't know we were going to be speaking today since I'm not elected, I am hired. I am not an elected official, I'm hired by our governing board, and I wish the rest of you luck on your campaign. So, myself, I'm in a 2.5-year contract, so you can come and talk to me after that. But anyway, seriously, I don't want to keep you here long. Our commitment to education is very strong. I love the words I hear about getting all-day kindergarten funded. Other states are talking about funding preschool. We're still in Arizona talking about funding kindergarten. That has got to stop. We have got to fund kindergarten. We've got to get to our early learners. Where do you get to an intervention? Where do you get to a gap before it starts? And that's when our children are born all the way to the time they enter school. And if we cannot stop that in all of our communities, because we have vulnerable populations, remember, people don't all look, sound, or earn what it looks like at your table. There's a diversity out there that we deal with in public schools every day. We see it every day. But we want equal outcomes at the end of it, meaning we want everyone to achieve. We have got to start doing that earlier. We have got to start at the very earliest age, getting our 3- and 4-year-olds into free, affordable, with a highly qualified, certified teacher. We also are very, very worried about our workforce. You all know it. Every place we go, we have signs. We not only have workforce for certified teachers, but workforce for our people who run schools. That's our support staff. Very, very hard. You can ask Dr. Nance, who's at our table right now, and Lana Berry, who exceptionally work with our budgets to be able to attract and retain and keep our teachers. But it is very hard to live in Chandler and maintain these jobs. So we have to do collaborations to be able to look at how we can provide available housing first, affordable housing for our teachers and individuals and even our first responders. We have made a commitment to doing stronger collaborations with the city. Josh and I have been talking on, Mayor Harkey and I have been talking as well, that we're starting our first collaboration between city executives and the cabinet for COSD to move forward with very large scale innovative thinking of how we can make our money go better and serve everyone. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to come up here. You guys are awesome. Keep your focus. Chandler is a great place because of you.
So we'd like to bring up Kyrene, superintendent, and the team that's here from Kyrene. Give them just a couple of minutes. I see Superintendent Tinez coming up. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I am honored to be here today with our elected officials. I also have our board president here, Mr. Walsh, and I'll hand it over to him in just a minute. I know how hard each and every one of you work every day. I see the communication my board gets every day. I'm part of that. And I know that the last couple of years have been really challenging, especially for school districts. I think Mr. Narducci did a really nice job of talking about some of our challenges with the early childhood, with staffing. Some of the things that we're focused on in Kyrene this year, we are unique. I don't know how many of you are aware that Kyrene doesn't just serve Chandler. We also serve the city of Tempe. We also serve Ahwatukee, which is the city of Phoenix. We also serve 2 reservations in Guadalupe area and Gila River. So we have a very unique way to do business, if you will, and we serve a lot of unique populations. We are very focused right now on understanding. We're also only K-8, so we only go up through 8th grade, so we have to do a lot of collaboration with our high school districts. Very focused on a lot of high school districts have graduate profiles, and so we've been talking about what does a profile look like for an 8th grade student that we're sending out into the world to be high school ready and beyond. And so we are working right now in the process of building that. I met with our Business Alliance group yesterday, which is a great group, and they have been heavily engaged in that work with us because we feel like they are the ones that can give us the voice of what types of students do you want us to produce. So we're looking for lots of feedback from our community and all of our stakeholders. So that's been our big focus this year. We are very excited to be a part of Chandler and participate in all of the Chamber events.
Thank you, Superintendent. Right before I came on here, I was told you can either be interesting or you can be brief. I'm rarely the former, so I'll be the latter. I just want to celebrate and thank you so much for the support you give to our district. We have 26 schools in Kyrie, many are in Chandler. I'll tell you this, we have one of the highest numbers of schools designated as A+ schools. Yeah. I will tell you, of the ones that we just recently added this year, 2/3 of them are in Chandler. So thank you, Chandler. We're really excited for that. We are so focused on keeping our schools open for in-person learning because we know that's where students learn best. So thank you for your support and please continue to support us.
Thank you, Superintendent and Irene. So I think we may have one individual from Mesa Public Schools.
I know some people had to leave early. Did we miss any governing or any elected officials in the room? I know we had many of them that had to leave early, so.
I think we got them.
All right.
Turning it back to you.
Well, thank you again for everybody who is here with us today. And we will be continuing to advocate. I do for business with each of you. I do want to again thank our tremendous sponsors today. I would like anybody who's here from We Serve, could you please stand up? I just wanted to acknowledge them because they're an amazing team. We love working with them, so thank you for all you do. Keep those people coming to Arizona, sell those homes. Well, I'd also like to thank Salt River Project, Dignity Health Chandler Regional Medical Center, Arizona State University, Air Products and Chemicals, Catalyst Computer Technologies, Gila River Hotels and Casinos, Southwest Gas, Southwest Airlines, Intel, and Winiger Properties. So I also want to do a couple shouts. We are partnering with 2 other chambers. We have an economic update luncheon coming up on the 27th. We've been doing these for many, many years, and we were fortunate that Gilbert and Sarah from Gilbert and Chris from Queen Creek, we're going to do a tri-community economic update. We have economic development experts from each of our communities that will be talking about what's happening in our individual communities, as well as an overview from Chris Camacho, who spearheads GPEC. And then we also have our Gila River Indian community that will be also present, that will be giving you an update on the new casinos and some of the developments that they have going. Mark your calendars, it's at the end of January. It will be held at Chandler Gilbert Community College. So it's a great collaboration. We're really excited about that. So, and then Councilmember Harris wanted to do he's got a Martin Luther King update, and it's pretty
you slaughtering it, like brief. So next Friday, you want to be here, and we're having the Mlk Awards. We are awarding recipients right here in the city of Chandler for their great hard work. And actually, our Lifetime Achievement Awards will be going to Pastor Victor Harvey. He's back there in the back. Wave your hand. So it's going to be inside our council chambers. That's next Friday at 3:30 p.m. We would like you all to come out and support. We have other recipients that will be receiving awards that are leaders around the community. So please come out and support. We'll hope to see you there.
Thank you for that. I knew I wouldn't do that justice. So again, thank each and every one of you for being here. Have a safe and blessed day. Thank you.